Today, Disney Plus celebrates its third birthday. Throughout that time, we have seen countless original shows. But for a lot of them, you watch them week to week, and when the finale comes out, we just move on with our lives. But what would happen if you rewatch them all without all the theories and discussions circling around, but just binge them and analyze them? Well, that's what we're going to do today. Hello everyone, I'm Fictional Fanatics, and today we will be rewatching the Disney Plus originals. Also, no face cam because, I'm lazy and this video is probably 40 to 50 minutes. Let's begin. Now first, let's establish some rules. First of all, since it's being rewatched, I will need to watch it before, so there won't be some random Disney Plus Junior content that I need to watch. Also, what I consider original content is a bit different, but it is just content exclusive that has never been released before the launch of Disney Plus. It kind of only premiered here. So if you want to see what I discuss, just check the time cards in the description. If I'm fancy enough to do time cards in the description, again, 50-minute video, I'm going to be probably lazy. Also, this will not count anything after September 8th, 2022. Actually, it's probably going to be, for the most part, January 2022. I don't want to rewatch Book of Boba so soon. I don't want to watch Kenobi again. Please save me. I gotta do that next year. You gotta watch me suffer next year. Isn't that so exciting? Anyways, this is just because I want it to be a yearly thing for new Disney Plus content in the next year. That'll be a next year thing, and you can expect it on November 12th then, which will be on a Sunday. Set your calendars. So now, without further ado, let's begin. The Mandalorian. Sorry, we're not doing that. It's just this great theme. Anyways, the beloved opener to Disney Plus, restoring faith in many that Disney can make great Star Wars. It was a phenomenon when it came out, and it still is to some extent. It was the first real fandom I ever participated in, and it was just an exciting time to be a Star Wars fan. But now that we are long removed from the first two seasons, how good is it? Chapter 1 was a great opening to the show. Whether it was the capture of the Mythrol, to the many great scenes on Navarro, to meeting Queel, IG-11, and of course the final scene revealing Grogu, it was just a great episode which stands really well. But the second chapter isn't as good as I thought it would be. It was fun and entertaining, and the fight against the Mudhorn was cool, but looking back, it was kind of a boring episode. I enjoyed it upon first release, and I think many did, just because we were all excited to see anything new. So to have another episode 3 days after the first one was just something really exciting. And the third chapter was incredible. I loved Mando's guilt for giving away the child, the forging of the armor, Paz Vizsla, and the last 15 minutes with the Empire, and then the Mandalorians. That was great. I love how everyone's tracker just started beeping and then everyone converged on Mando. And when all the other Mandalorians came out, it was so cool. It's just a very good episode. I'm not sure if everyone believes this, but Chapter 4 of The Mandalorian was really good and is one of my favorites. From beginning to end, I was completely enthralled by the story. It was so cool seeing the classic Clone Wars episode format of saving these farmers from bandits and teaching them to fight, expanded and put into live action. It was just so entertaining. I can't completely explain why, but I loved it. That one girl character in the town, great. Gina Carano's character, great. The ATSD, great. It's all great. Chapter 5 was pretty good. It was fun when I first saw it, but after seeing more of Pelimato and Fennec in the later season and then Book of Boba, I appreciated this episode a lot more. It was a fun episode, and seeing the ingenuity of Mando throughout was very fun. And Chapter 6 is also really fun. Upon first watch, I wasn't really into it, but besides the fact that it was a bit edgy Star Wars, and I found it kind of weird how they said damn once, I believe. But now, I think it's so cool as an episode. It shows off how cool Mando can be, and the whole story the whole time is enjoyable. The ending with Mando getting the tracker was great, and overall, I loved the episode. And Chapter 7 was, again, very good. Seeing the conflict between Cara Dune and Queel was fun. Seeing Grogu force choke Cara was kind of scary, honestly. Seeing Grogu save Grief and then Grief changing to Mando's team was enjoyable. The ending with Queel dying was so sad, and this was an enjoyable, grim, and captivating episode. Unlike Kenobi. The 8th chapter, The 8th chapter in the season finale was pretty good. The Scout Trooper thing at the start felt like Taika Waititi being himself a bit too much in Star Wars, and I didn't really enjoy that scene. It was a bit too funny, and just showing that they can't shoot. It's like, you're trying to make them very scary, and like, how is Mando going to escape, and then they can't shoot a can. I think Thor Skywalker made a video about this, saying like, it would have been so much cooler if they shot it and shot it and shot it and shot it until it got too far away. Like, that would be scary and cool, and it would have made them scarier. Anyways, Moff Gideon was really cool, and the stuff with Mando's team evading the Empire was very cool. Taking off the helmet, I loved that. But there was something that just made me feel like this episode needed a bit more, and I don't know why. I mean, but that ending with Mando using the jetpack, it just didn't feel complete as an episode. It's fun, but I feel like it needed just a tiny bit more. But then Chapter 9 is pretty good. I love Cobb Vanth as a character, and seeing his conflict with the Tuskens was cool. I love how they teamed up and how the Tuskens said they will keep the peace until you break it, saying that this has happened many times in the past, and they're not the aggressors, it's the other teams, the humans. The Krayt Dragon fight was fun, and the ending with Boba, mwah. Chapter 10 was the worst episode of the show. It felt like a huge side mission and wasn't necessary at all. Frog Lady was annoying, Grogu eating eggs was dumb and kind of grossed me out. The spiders did scare me, even though I've never been an arachnoid. That's what it's called, right? Seeing the New Republic was cool, but it was not one of my favorite episodes. Chapter 11 was fun. Seeing the Mandalorians was cool. Finding out that Mando is Death Watch is cool, although it also hurts my brain a bit because the Death Watch and Clone Wars they did take off their helmets. Anyways, the episode was fun, but mainly just for the characters, as concept was a boring thing we've seen many times before. It was fun, but not the best thing ever. Chapter 12 is an episode which felt out of place. Mando needed a ship repaired, so for some reason he goes all the way to Navarro and fights stormtroopers. How did the Empire know that Mando was coming to Navarro to put the tracker on a ship? It's unknown. But even with that, all that, it's a fun episode which is enjoyable, but it felt more like an excuse for these cameos and not because it was necessary for the story, which I feel like happens a lot in this show. Chapter 13 was a very cool episode. I loved how different it felt from the whole season. It had such a Japanese-inspired feel, and the whole atmosphere felt like an episode of Visions. Ahsoka was so cool, although sad that we didn't have Ashley Eckstein playing her. I enjoyed it, and if Ahsoka is going to be like this, I'm excited. Chapter 14 was phenomenal. The Scene Stone is a cool concept, but Boba. Why does this exist if he's trying to rule with respect? This is what we could have gotten in the Book of Boba Fett. It hurts me so much. I thought this was a cool episode originally, but now, after all the pain caused to me by Book of Boba, this is so much better than anything Mando or Book of Boba has done so far, just for the cool factor. You see him smashing the helmets. It's just amazing. Why wasn't this in, Book of Boba? We're not talking about that video because it hurts me. Chapter 15 was fun, emotional, but it was a bit out of place. Now, I'm glad they put the thought into finding out where the ship was, but having it be in a whole episode where it seems just a bit too long. I was happy to see Mayfield, and the stuff with the old officer was amazing. Mando taking off his helmet was great, and overall, with it was just a great episode, if not out of place. And the finale, episode 16, finally the end of the season. It was a very fun episode. I don't know how much more to say besides it was fun. The Grogu goodbye with Luke showing up struck me harder than it did for the first watch on some reason. Either way, the episode is ruined by Book of Boba Fett, so it ruins my enjoyment just a bitch. Thanks, Boba. The Mandalorian, it's a great show, but it was a bit overhyped when released. It's definitely a good show with a lot of fantastic elements, but a bit in the first season and mainly in the second, it loses a bit of its charm for cameo of the week fun. Again, it's fun, but not the best thing I've ever seen. The Clone Wars is one of the best pieces of Star Wars, so the finale of it is highly anticipated. At the time of watching, I wasn't really a part of the Star Wars fandom, mainly because I hadn't seen Clone Wars yet, so just for this show, I wasn't really in the loop. I didn't start watching it until 4 weeks after release, but the last season holds up incredibly well, for the most. That the Bad Batch art is a bit underrated. The Bad Batch was a bit annoying here more than in their own show, but the Echo Rex development was a very cool part. The Trace and Rafa arc was boring, and here the Siege of Mandalore was amazing. I loved it on my first and second viewing, but details from other shows like Bad Batch and Order 66 flashbacks and other places, as well as further rewatches of this in the first 6 seasons, it just made this arc so much more compelling to me. It was a great way to end the series, and although the Trace and Rafa stuff could have been shortened and become much better, it was just overall, it deserves the legacy that it's gotten, and it's really great. Also, one more thing about Season Mandalore. The Tales of the Jedi episode, Practice Makes Perfect, how it improves it so much. I don't know how they can improve it that much, but now that I've seen that, it's a 15 out of 10, not just a 11, it's 15. Well, The Bad Batch is a show with pretty mixed reception. Some episodes are so artistic and beautiful, and some are just to fill the episode count so that you forget the week after. But when you rewatch and binge it, how good is it? With the power of binging, in my opinion, it has changed a bit. The first episode and the last 2 are still really great and underrated now, but the filler episodes also don't seem as bad as me. When you still get 1 episode a week, it gets really annoying, but it's not as annoying when you can binge it. Infested still felt really disappointing and out of place due to where it is and the episode before and after, but it's also just basically the Trace and Rafa arc from Clone Wars condensed into 1 episode. With binging, the tropes got a bit more annoying, like Tech popping into info whenever, and then act like it's obvious, Omega constantly being the moral fiber of the team, and Sid being a source of information and plot lines. It seems like a lot of episodes, especially the last 3, are setting up for 2nd season, which feels weird because it leaves this finale with a bit more to be desired. Overall, my reception is better than when it first launched, but I'm hoping Season 2 changes things because it's still not the best. Star Wars Visions is one of the most interesting shows for me. When it came out, I was not that excited. I waited 1 to 2 weeks before deciding to start watching. Then I saw the first episode and decided to stop watching, thinking it wasn't for me. It was such a weird thing and almost on Star Wars, that first episode, but in my opinion, I thought they were all going to be the same, so I just stopped. But May the 4th, 2022, I decided to give it another chance. I'd become a much bigger Star Wars fan since then and now, so in the span of 2 days I watched all of them, and it was a mixed bag, so let's see if that changes now. The Duel is such a cool episode. The black and white aesthetic makes it really feel like some old samurai film. The Inquisitor had such an interesting style which looked super unique, and there was some sort of mystery behind the samurai, which is cool, and the duel was just so beautiful. And then in the end, the whole samurai gives the chief the crystal and just leaves the town was mysterious as it began. It was a very artistic and a very cool story. Tatooine Rhapsody is one of the worst ones. It feels like it has the plot of a Disney Junior show. It had this look of anime that didn't feel authentic to anime or Star Wars. Overall, it was pretty boring, and although seeing Tamara Morrison as Boba Fett here, it was cool. The twins was an interesting concept of an episode. I think a lot of the concepts in this episode were cool, but there was like a whole 30-minute exposition dumped by a droid, which I didn't really like. But besides that, it is really interesting. I don't think it was the best executed episode, but I think it has a really cool concept and story, which just needed more time. It was cool, but could have been better. The Village Bride was probably my favorite. It was so sweet and felt the most like Star Wars. With all the characters, they had their own intrigue and quirks, giving the story a real dynamic feeling. It was also really clever with the idea of the battle droids being taken over. They've done this before, but I just still like the idea. It's a very unique episode, and it's one of the best. The Ninth Jedi is very interesting. Every second feels important, and I love how many twists are along the way. Honestly, my only problem with this one is we don't have a show based on this episode. Tob 1 is annoying. For some reason, I liked it on my first watch, but the second time, it was just Caillou in space. Bad. The Elder is a very interesting episode. There were a lot of good parts in it, but there were also some that were not so good. The Apprentice was probably the worst part of the episode. He has the same idea of action is good like Anakin, but it doesn't feel as fleshed out as Anakin. The whole idea of the Elder Sith broken off from the old Sith was cool. The duel between the Master and the Sith was cool, although I did hate the Apprentice's fake-out death, so it was good, but it had a few missteps. Lop and Ocho was another good one. Besides young Lop at the beginning being a bit annoying, this one was really good. I love the idea of how this family doesn't need to be blood, and that the Empire could be helping generations, the generational lightsaber, and so much more. This feels like Star Wars with the Rebels, and at its full potential, and also even better in my opinion. I don't know why, but this is such a good episode, and the father being unwilling to fight his daughter when she might kill him was so powerful. Akatiri was so boring and uninspired. It's basically just plagiarizing the prequels and condensing them into a 20-minute thing. The guides were so annoying and the ending was horrible. How the Sith got the Jedi to kill the girl was clever using the Force, but everything after that and before that was just bad. The whole upbeat music at the end was just so out of pace, and Akatari's bad. Overall, Star Wars Visions was good. Some overall details bring up the mix of Star Wars music and Japanese was cool, but they used some CGI in a few episodes and it looked bad. I would have preferred a completely one style in each episode and not mixing it with CGI. Just draw the arenas in Tatooine Rhapsody. It's not that hard. I don't care if there weren't as many people, but it just looks bad. But Visions was good, and most episodes have improved with time. Now the LEGO Holiday Specials. Woot woot! Let's talk about them all now, because I don't care about the rules I set up. Now, I'm something of a LEGO fan myself, and I'm something of a Star Wars fan myself. So going into each sort, I was excited. And upon first watch and rewatch, they're all good. The holiday episode was the worst, but it's still fun. The stuff with Rey was fun, but it doesn't add anything, and was just mindless fun for the sake of it. My favorite parts were with Finn and Poe setting up the Life Day party. That was the best part. Seeing Finn's training was cool. Kylo and the Emperor was cool. It was fun. The Terrifying Tales was the start of the mixed formula, and the second formula I enjoy a bit more. We have our main characters crashing on Mustafar, where we see a hut opening a hotel in Vader's castle. We meet Vinay, who knows a prophecy about a pilot, so takes Poe into the castle with the help of a boy. They are told stories about the galaxy which help them along their journey, until they find the Sith Hawkeye, which Vinay steals and uses its Sith power until thwarted by Poe and the boy. It was fun and a better concept, and the main plot was still lacking. I enjoyed the series. Vacation was the best. The sequel crew go on a vacation on the Halcyon Star Cruiser, where Poe is trying to hold the vacation together, but with the help of Force Ghost telling him stories, he realizes that vacation is just a time with people you love. It was the best of the stories. It had a great main story. It's just great. WandaVision is one of the main reasons I became a big MCU fan. Although before I liked the movies and even saw Endgame in theaters, I hadn't even seen Iron Man. But this show inspired me to become a much bigger MCU fan. I watched all the breakdowns of the first few episodes, being shocked at the Strucker watch and things like that, and overall I just thought it was a very unique concept. But the finale was disappointing, so it wasn't my favorite MCU. At least let's see how it holds up. Now, one thing I had with this was I recently watched the making of the show's documentary. The creators gave me an interesting perspective on the show, which I felt very strongly in the first episode. The fact that it was filmed as the original show it was based on gave it so much more charm, and I appreciated it a lot. I realized I'm glad I rewatched it, since after seeing WandaVision before Multiverse of Madness, now seeing it again, it's changed my view a bit. While on first watch, it was just confusing and theorizing all the way up to the finale. Knowing more of the meaning of this whole Westview thing, it changes things up. You can see the roles more clearly. You can see Agatha's presence trying to mess things up, Swords interfering, and Wanda and Vision discovering what's going on. It was stated that Wanda did not intentionally create Westview, and I honestly don't think she realized she controlled it until the end of episode 3. The sword bits, I think, would have been much better without Hayward, and it was really just a bunch of random people trying to figure out the mystery instead of this scheme to recover Vision, and the finale was not great. The Vision and White Vision fight was still cool, but Wanda against Agatha didn't really work. They tried to make this big MCU film-like finale, and it just feels unjustified. It tries to make Wanda a hero and turn around just to be evil in multiverse. I would have rather if we didn't have Agatha and instead we have Strange come and shut this down to make her feel like she needs to pull the strings and add control, and it just makes multiverse make more sense. It's not just, I'm evil now because I read a book. Also, the fact that in the finale, we literally have Wanda saying to the kids, handle the military. That was so dumb. But when the family goes and says goodbye at the end, that was perfect. And it should have ended there without having Wanda walk through town and then have Monica being like, they'll never know what you sacrificed. One more thing, the Pietro twist really wasn't that bad. And it's probably better than any alternative with him being a real person. Just saying. Overall, it was really good on rewatch, and although a few things like the presence of an antagonist was bad, it was probably improved on rewatch. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was a show I really liked when it came out. I honestly liked seeing John Walker around, and the Flag Smasher stuff was an interesting concept. But as we got to the finale, I saw the flaws in the show. But what do I think now? Well, it had a lot of potential. While rewatching, I kept flip-flopping on what the show should have been. I have a lot of ideas and definitely will be doing a video about it, but there's so many interesting ways you could have taken the show, and this just wasn't it. I don't know if it was because of COVID, reshoot, or cuts related to the rumored pandemic originally in the script, which makes so much more sense for the story. Anyways, every once in a while you see the frame of something good, but in the end we just get a fan-favorite characters in a half-baked plot, and it's just not that fun. Loki was a great show when originally released. It was an interesting concept, and with a fan-favorite character getting mixed up in a Disney Plus show format, it was a good idea. And I enjoyed it, but in retrospect, I found it a bit boring. So has that changed? Upon watching, I found myself a lot more interested than upon first watch. After seeing a bunch of half-baked, stretched-out Disney Plus shows, it felt refreshing. I read 1984 earlier this year and even made a video about Doublethink and Lies, but now rewatching this, I can see the parallels forming between the TVA and Oceania. I find the characters so interesting. All the Lokis, Loki, Sylvie, Mobius, B-15, Renslayer, and of course King. Each character felt so filled with life and had a place in the series. Each had an interesting plot progressions and stories. Each episode felt appropriately paced. Upon first watching episodes like Lamentus, it felt slow, but looking back, I appreciated taking the time to slow down and giving us character moments. And the part I forgot most was the finale. King was so good and a banger episode, even though it was just people talking. The stakes of the episode was a choice, not who could punch harder. Like Loki said, King was terrifying, and this was his nice variant. Overall, it was so much better than when I first rewatched it, and this show needs a lot more credit. Hawkeye was a show which, upon release, I was excited for. I enjoyed it while coming out, but for some reason didn't like the ending. But upon rewatch, it did change a bit. After watching Daredevil, I really enjoyed seeing the tracksuits. They're a fun group of villains who I do think are underrated. Kate and Clint's stories with their families are great. One of the best scenes in the show was Hawkeye, who didn't have his hearing aid, and Kate needing to write down what his son was saying. The two of them just had a great dynamic. When you throw in Yelena, it's perfection. Now the finale. Now I do enjoy it, but I do find it a lot dumber. It's a very fun watch, but when you think about it, it's really dumb. Throughout the whole show, I was thinking about how where the tracksuits were, they're mafia, they're supposed to be covert. But then my counter-argument was that it was mindless recklessness. But here, attacking one of the most populated areas of New York City with an army of your mafia just trying to kill one person is ridiculous. And it's not like, oh, it's Maya's rage. It's Kingpin. He's the top guy and he's ordering this. One of the biggest parts of the mafia is to stay hidden. Overall, it's very enjoyable, but it's a bit dumb in some places. What If is one of my most anticipated shows upon release, and it did not disappoint. Although the finale was a bit incomplete, it was one of the best Disney Plus shows in my opinion. But has that changed? Captain Carter I enjoyed at first, and on second watch, I enjoyed it more. I didn't like how similar it was to the first adventure, but after watching Agent Carter, seeing more Peggy and Howard was a treat. T'Challa Star-Lord is beyond amazing. Seeing all those space characters, the Buff Collector, Thanos being a good guy, and called Captain Genocide, and just seeing T'Challa, he had no right to be this good, entertaining, funny, but it was, and it was great. Nick Fury's bad week was good, and although it was a bit boring as we kept seeing it go on, and things like Hulk dying didn't make sense, but the ending was great. Loki was nice to see, and the graveyard fight at the end was amazing and so funny. Seeing Hank as the villain was an interesting idea, and Loki and Nick Fury was just quipping and roasting like no man's business, and it was hilarious. A fine episode, but not the best. Doctor Strange losing his heart is seriously underrated. Just kidding, it's overrated. Either it's boring or dumb. Strange Supreme was so stupid at times with his resistance, and making more plot holes in the Multiverse of Madness somehow. And when Strange was brought back later in another body, it was just so different. Not good. Zombies was one which I enjoyed, but the tonal problems ruined it upon rewatch. When you have episodes like 4 or 8, I don't know why you didn't make a darker episode. And I just wanted to see more of Zombie Thanos. It was a fine episode, but yeah. What if Michael Jordan saved Iron Man was born and all unnecessary? Although I didn't enjoy it. It felt like a retread of Black Panther with a few things changed up, and it was just boring. I would have much rather have something like What If Killmonger's Dad Lived or something like that, and that would have been a better idea. Party Thor was incredible. Funny, different, making good use of the characters and staying true to its low-stakes plot. It was delightful and everything that Love and Thunder wasn't. What If Ultron 1 was an interesting concept, but I would have enjoyed a self-contained story no more. The multiverse stuff didn't make sense. How did Thanos get the Time Stone without coming to Earth? That doesn't make sense. I enjoyed this stuff with Nat and Clint, but I would have rather if this episode ended in 8 with them dying or destroying Ultron, but being the last 2 humans on Earth. And that would have been interesting because since Nat was neutered, they can't do anything to revive the human race, making the Red Room even more tragic. That's very missed potential, but it's fine, I guess. The finale, bad. Ultron seems too powerful or too little powerful. They took the Mind Stone from him at one point. He should have died right there, but he didn't. The Killmonger twist, we all saw it coming, and it was just a mediocre end to the show. Overall, it's a fine show with great parts, but there is a lot of missed potential. Sneakerella is a Disney Plus original movie similar to those of Disney Channel. When I first saw it, I thought it was a pretty good movie, although I did make fun of it a lot. In a scrapped video, you can see it here. Or it might not be here, I don't know. But now, I've enlightened myself and not seen that it's just a good movie, or even great, but the best movie ever. You could dip a movie in holy water, and this would still be better. This movie is perfection, and it's not just art. It is holy. I should know because I'm Jesus. Watch this video. I'm plugging right now. I can't. It is Sneakerella, the best movie, and it is the best movie that will ever be made. And we should just stop watching movies because they will never be this good. I urge you to watch it because I am serious when I say it's great. Honestly, it's great. Go watch it. It's good. It's not the best movie ever. I'm joking, but it's very good and I enjoy it. Hamilton is very good. This is the 4th time I've watched it. Upon that time, I've seen it 3 times since, and I watched it. It just keeps getting better. I'm keeping this brief because I could talk for hours, and I probably will do a video on that at some point. Maybe it'll be linked here. Anyways, I would say that it's the best thing ever, but Sneakerella exists, so it's second. But it's nowhere near Sneakerella. When 2020 came around, we had 2 films announced from Pixar being Onward and Soul, and I was excited for Onward but not for Soul. But then they released, and I really liked Soul, but thought Onward was mediocre. But does Soul still hold up? After rewatch, I loved it so much more. I had enjoyed it the first time and found it pretty emotional, but this time it struck so much harder. I could have seen the whole movie just of Joe's life, playing the piano and doing his whole gig thing. I could have seen all that just without the death thing and just due to his family, his job, playing gigs, and just seeing the whole community. Just that part was great. So I was sad when he went to this mind-bending death dimension, but then I started watching this part, and I started getting into that part, and found 22 really good, but where it peaks is when 22 comes to Earth. Some of the shenanigans, like the cat stuff, was dumb, but for the most part, like when she was talking to that girl in the class, or the barber, or the mother, it's just the best of Pixar. Then they have the whole fighting thing, Joe going back to find out that what he thinks the moment that's going to change his life forever is, it's not going to change his life, he feels the same, and that was a crushing scene. The whole overall monster fight at the end was a bit over the top for this film, but seeing 22 go into life was so sweet, and overall, there were a few tiny missteps, but overall, it's one of Pixar's best films, and I recommend it to you. Luca was the second Disney Plus original movie. I remember enjoying it when I first watched it. It was a fun time, like my favorite movie. So how do I feel now? I thought it was a fun time. The opening with the family was a bit slow because what I liked most was Luca in the human world. On the island, it was fun seeing their time creating mess spuds, almost like kids, making their cardboard houses or cars. When he goes back to his parents and trying to send him to the bottom of the sea seems severe, especially because when she does it, it only makes him want to go to the surface more. But my favorite part of the movie is Porto Rosso. The antagonist is so funny. The father was so going out to look for Alberto, and Julia was a great character. I might be a bit biased because she reminds me of an old friend of mine that moved away, but seeing her spirit and attitude was great. I loved how quickly she accepted Alberto and Luca as monsters. The main thing I didn't like, though, was Alberto's jealousy. And I know that he didn't want to lose his friend, but I would just think that he'd want more people in his life, not only have one person. Overall, it was a fun time, but not much else. It was just fun. When I saw Turning Red for the first time, although having many doubts after the trailer scared me. It was amazing, and it was funny. Has this changed? Yes. It's not only amazing and funny, now it's a masterpiece. The jokes hit so much harder. Seeing everything being set up with context was great. Fort Town is honestly really catchy. I want to go listen to their songs right now. And its time period is very interesting for a 2022 movie. Mei Lee is an incredible character. Seeing her struggle between her mother and friends was great. Her friends and her mother were great, and I don't know what more to say. It was incredibly good, and at the end with everyone turning into pandas and and then Four Towns singing, it literally gave me chills both time I watched it. I'm not joking. I don't know how it gave me chills, but it did. Also, watch the whole credits, because although they're extremely long, they have Four Town songs playing the whole time. Honestly, I think they made it purposely long just so because there were some strange categories and so they could show off their Four Town songs. Anyways, 11 out of 10. Watch it. Funny awooga. Now, Pixar has always been some of my favorite movies as a child, and when Monsters at Work premiered, it was a perfect time for me. I had just finished Loki and was going into What If, so this was the perfect bridge. It gave me something to watch. So I watched it week after week until about halfway through the 7th episode, I quit. I didn't even finish that episode. I just quit. I was getting bored of the show and was done with it. So going into this video, it was definitely one I wanted to rewatch. So I did, and I gotta say, it's good. Although the myth character tropes were really rough at first, like Tyler, you learn to grow and love the team. I love the idea that these kids got stuck between the transfer of power and that Waternoose and Sully need to get pushed around, and he had to deal with it. I'm so mad at myself that I quit it when I did, because the last episodes are some of the best. Seeing Tyler start to give up on his dream and being on the laugh floor was so depressing, and seeing him doubt himself when he got the chance back. And that coupled with the fact that he found families at MIFT was great tension. The members of MIFT got really good as the show went along. All the monsters were annoying at first, but I gotta say, Duncan was my favorite turnaround. I absolutely despised him at first, just for being so annoying, but as it goes on, the episode about David, the 9th one I believe, he just has a creepiness that's so funny, and in the finale, when he thought Tyler was leaving, it genuinely struck me deep. Like, honestly, the episode about David, he was like, was he a good boy? Because he was asking Tyler to go check on his dog thing. And that was just so funny. That's a character type he should have been. The story with Mike and Sully was also great, and overall, if you like Monsters, Inc. at all, you need to watch this, and it's really good. Also, it had Dean Bradley Baker as Banana Bread. When Disney Plus first launched, besides The Mandalorian, Phineas and Ferb was the first show I watched. My friends said such great things about this show, so when I went to watch it for myself, it did not disappoint. So when I heard a new Phineas and Ferb movie was coming to Disney Plus, I was excited after watching the first one. But when it first came out, I thought it was good, to the point where I literally rewatched it the next day. But now with a bigger gap and my hype died down, it's still good. One of the main things I noticed on this rewatch was the songs. It seems like there were too many. While the opening song, Universe Against Me, and Battle Song were great, the others seemed to be too close together, and it was like one after another and another. It wasn't horrible, but it did seem a bit excessive. Furthermore, the fourth wall breaks did seem a bit excessive here as well. It's hard to explain, but simple fourth wall breaks, like their references to chorus and other things, seem like it happened a bit too much. The Lightspeed part was funny, but the rest got annoying. The story wasn't nearly as good as I remember on the Candace side until the finale, and the only interesting stuff was with the gang and Doofenshmirtz, which is a bit disappointing since this is a Candace movie. Once we get to the final battle, the closing song was pretty good, and the Candace not busting her brothers was sweet. But since this wasn't at the end of summer, we'll know she'll go back the next day to doing it. There were some nice running gags like the chicken replacinator and Buford just carrying around the canoe. No one mentions it, but he's just carrying it around, and that's extremely funny. Overall, it's fine, but not nearly as good as I remember. Also, I only just realized this film while watching the credits, but D. Bradley Baker voices Perry. I wouldn't be surprised if he voices the rooster that you hear in the background of my videos time to time. He is everywhere. Now, I don't have a formal ending for the video, so I'm just going to be freestyling it. Disney Plus, rap. I am a rapper, and that is that. Watch this video, hit the bell, yeah. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for torturing you like that. Disney Plus has been a fun streaming service to watch, and it's interesting to see what it's come. It's made some very great shows, and it hasn't made that much bad content. I mean, there's a lot of mediocre stuff, but at least from when it released to 2021, it wasn't too bad. Mostly that's 2022. So thanks for that, 2022. That's gonna be fun to watch next year. You should watch it, but no. Most of these shows are great, and yeah, I guess the main thing to take away from this is watch Sneakerella. Thanks for watching. Watch all my other videos. Hit the like, please. This video's very long. Yeah. Bye.